Welcome to my views on news. Monday's first video, first news stories from Addis Ababa, Ethiopian capital, where for the last 2 weeks we have been seeing clashes at some schools over hoisting of Oromia region's flag and singing of Oromia anthem at Addis Ababa schools. Now, federal government of Ethiopia is intervening. It has made some decisions about hoisting of the flag and singing of Oromia anthem at these schools of Addis Ababa. Secondly, viewers, a journalist has been arrested in Somalia in Mogadishu. The journalist interviewed a top man of Al Shabaab a few months ago, did some videos on that. He covered Tigray war as well. He visited Amhara region last year when Tigray forces were threatening to reach Addis Ababa, Ethiopian capital. Why was he arrested? And thirdly, Qemant ethnic group members, some of them have been launching an armed resistance in the Amhara region of Ethiopia. They have their hideouts in Sudan too. Ethiopian state media is claiming that dozens of Qemant fighters have surrendered. Who are the fighters who surrendered? Where did they surrender? Firstly, viewers, Addis Ababa, Ethiopian capital. Oromia region-based groups and parties say that Addis Ababa is both a federal capital and a regional capital too. Oromo Liberation Army, its position is that Addis Ababa is part of Oromia. OLA calls it Finfene. And OLA's target is control of Finfene, control of Oromia, control of Finfene, and right of self-determination for the people of Oromia. That is what the stated objective of Oromo Liberation Army is. And we know that Addis Ababa Mayor Addis Ababa has been supporting singing of Oromia region's anthem and hoisting of Oromia region's flag at Addis Ababa schools. In some statements, she supported these actions. But parents and some political parties, they have been opposing these actions. We have seen statements from Baldiras party, from Azima party, which opposed flag hoisting and singing of Oromia anthem at Addis Ababa schools. And this year alone, in 2022, at least 12 incidents were reported involving clashes at Addis Ababa schools over this contentious issue. Political parties, some parents, some residents, they oppose the hoisting of the flag and singing of the anthem. For the last 2 weeks, we have been seeing tensions. Police had to intervene. Police arrested several members of Baldiras party. Some teachers, students were arrested too. Some students were injured. Addis Ababa government were not backing down from its position that flag should be hoisted. But now federal government of Ethiopia is intervening. Reportedly, directions have been passed from the federal government to Addis Ababa Education Authority, Addis Ababa Schools Authority, Addis Ababa government, that from Monday, Oromia region's flag will not be hoisted at Addis Ababa school, that Oromia region's anthem will not be sung at Addis Ababa schools. Directions have been passed. Will the directions be implemented? That remains to be seen. Senior government officials, federal government officials have confirmed that such directions have been passed. because the issue was becoming a security threat in Addis Ababa, and it was becoming a serious issue. That is what we have been saying, that it was turning into a serious ethnic issue. The issue is still unresolved. Main problem is that what is the status of Addis Ababa, Ethiopian capital? Is it part of Oromia too? Is it regional capital too? Or is it just a federal capital? This core issue should be resolved once and for all. How will this decision of federal government be received in the Oromia region? Obviously, Oromia region-based groups will oppose it. Will it be fully implemented? That remains to be seen. In coming hours, we'll try to update you about the implementation of this decision made by Ethiopian federal government. Secondly, viewers, Jamal Osman is a journalist. He works for Channel 4 News. If you remember, a few months ago, he made a documentary on Al-Shabaab. He visited Al-Shabaab's stronghold in Somalia. He interviewed Mahad Karate, who is Al-Shabaab's top man. And he shared details about how Al-Shabaab was raising funds, how schools, hospitals were functional in Al-Shabaab controlled areas. Did 2 videos on that. And that documentary was released, I think, when Farmajo was in power, former president, I think. When the documentary was released, Jamal was accused of supporting Al-Shabaab. He had said in the documentary and in some statements that Al-Shabaab was in a position to overrun Somalia, which it is. It is in a position to overrun Somalia if there is no effective resistance. And Jamal covered a little bit of Ethiopia, Tigray, Eritrea war as well. He visited Dassi last year, I remember. Jamal was arrested in Mogadishu on Sunday. He was arrested at Mogadishu's airport, Aden Airport, and his whereabouts are unknown now. Why did Somalia's government arrest Jamal Osman? We know that Hassan Sheikh government has launched a military operation against Al-Shabaab. And Hassan Sheikh government has imposed some restrictions on journalists too. Journalists are not free to cover Al-Shabaab's statements, Al-Shabaab's operations, Al-Shabaab's activities. Even Al-Shabaab is now being named as Kharjis. So these journalists are bound to address Al-Shabaab as Kharjis, means non-Muslims. We know that another top Somalia's journalist was arrested a few weeks ago. Abdullah Momin is his name. He is still in prison. International journalist bodies are calling for the release of Abdullah Momin, but not released so far. Now, Jamal Osman is in a prison being accused of supporting Al-Shabaab. I think we're seeing the same in Somalia, what we saw in Ethiopia, that whoever was covering TPLF statements was accused of supporting TPLF. Journalist has right to meet commanders of armed factions. That is how you know how these commanders or these organizations are operating. But does Somalia's government have any evidence that Al-Shabaab is backing Jamal? Or is it just his interviews which he conducted of Al-Shabaab members that he's being accused of being backed by Al-Shabaab? It's not clear. Somalia's government has not issued any statement about his arrest so far. Thirdly, viewers, Qemant ethnic group members have been complaining of repression in the Amhara region of Ethiopia. Qemants mostly live in the Amhara region, some in Tigray too, I think some in Eritrea as well. Mainly they are in Amhara region. Agaos are Qemants too, I think. And these Qemant fighters have their military presence in Sudan too. Thousands had to flee to Sudan. Why? Because they accused Amhara forces, Amhara militias of atrocities, and they fled Amhara region. Atrocities were committed especially during Tigray conflict last year when Tigray forces were in the Amhara region and they were in control of North Wollo, in control of parts of North Gondar, and they were trying to move towards Gondar city. Back then, Qemant fighters were accused of being backed by TPLF. And that is why there was fighting between Qemants and Amharas in some places. And then we saw large-scale displacements. Qemants had to flee Amhara, though still thousands live in Amhara. But thousands fled last year, who are now at refugee camps in Sudan. Ethiopian state media is claiming that dozens of Qemant fighters have surrendered. 38 Qemant fighters have surrendered according to Ethiopian state media. They surrendered in Matimma. Matimma is on Amhara-Sudan border. And from Sudan, Qemant fighters are known to be attacking territories, Ethiopian territories, Amhara region's territories in and near Matimma. Now, they have surrendered 38 who are being shifted to Gondar city. Still, thousands of Qemant fighters are in Sudan. Some could be continuing the armed resistance, but the majority of them is not part of armed resistance. They are refugees at camps in Sudan. Thank you for watching.